Ram Ram
Hare Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna Hare
Rama
Hare
Ram Hare 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 Krishna
Hare
Hare Krishna
Ram Hare Ram Hare Krishna
Ram
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare Hare
Krishna
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Hare 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 Ram Ram
Ram
Hare
Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
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 Hare
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 Ram
Hare Ram
Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Hare
Hare
Krishna Hare
Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna
Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna Hare Hare Hare
Hare Hare
Hare
Hare
Hare Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare
Hare Ram
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Rama
Krishna Krishna
Hare
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 Hare Hare Ram
Hare Hare Rama
Hare
Ram
Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna Krishna
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Hare Hare
Rama Ram
Hare
Hare
Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna
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 Hare
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 Rama Ram
Hare Ram
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna
Rama
Hare
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 Hare Ram
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama
Hare Krishna
Rama Hare Hare Krishna
Krishna
Hare Krishna
Krishna Hare Hare
Hare
Hare
Hare
Ram
Rama Hare Ram Hare
Hare
Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare Ram
Hare Hare Rama Ram Rama Hare
Krishna
Hare
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 Krishna
Krishna Krishna Krishna Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Rama
Hare
Ram
Hare Hare
Rama
Ram
Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Rama
Krishna Krishna
Rama Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Hare
Hare
Ram
Krishna
Hare
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 Rama
Hare Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna Hare Hare
Hare
Hare
Hare
Ram
Rama Rama Hare Hare Hare
Hare
Krishna
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 Hare Krishna
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna Hare 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 Ram
Hare Rama
Hare
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 Hare Hare
Krishna
Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna
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 Hare
Krishna Hare Hare
Rama Rama
Hare
Hare
Ram
Hare Hare Krishna
Hare Hare
Hare
Krishna Hare
Rama
Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Hare Krishna
Hare Hare Ram
Hare Hare Rama
Hare
Rama
Krishna Hare
Hare Hare
Krishna
Hare Krishna 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 Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna Hare Hare Hare
Rama
Ram
Hare Krishna
Hare
Krishna Hare Hare
Krishna Hare
Rama
Krishna Krishna
Hare Hare
Krishna
Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Ram
Rama
Hare
Hare
Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Rama
Hare Hare Ram
Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare
Krishna
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 Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
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 Ram
Rama Hare Hare Hare
Hare
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Rama
Krishna Hare Hare Hare
Hare Hare
Ram
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama
Hare Krishna
Rama Hare
Krishna
Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Ram
Hare Hare Rama Rama
Hare Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna
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 Hare
Krishna Hare
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 Rama
Hare Ram
Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna 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 Hare
Rama
Hare
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 Ram
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare
Rama
Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna
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 Hare
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 Hare Hare
Rama
Ram
Rama
Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna Hare
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 Rama
Hare
Hare Rama Hare
Ram
Hare Hare Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna
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 Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Hare Hare
Krishna
Rama
Krishna
Rama Hare Hare
Hare
Hare
Ram
Krishna Hare
Hare Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna Hare Hare
Nitai
Krishna
Gauranga
Hare
Nitai
Krishna
Gauranga
Hare Krishna
Nama Om
Krishna
Vishnu
Krishna
Padaya
Hare
Krishna Prasthaya Srimate Jai Pataka
Hare
Swami
Ram Hare Hare
Padaya
Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna
Nama
Hare
Daya
Hare
Ramakarne Nama Om Vishnu Padaya
Hare
Krishna
Krishna Hare
Prasthaya
Krishna
Srimate
Krishna
Bhakti
Krishna Hare Hare
Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani Vishesha Shunyavadi Pashurte Rishkane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale
Krishna Krishna Krishna
Swami
Hare Hare
Ram
Ram
Namaste Saraswati Devi
Hare
Gauravani Pracharne Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashurte Rishakarne Namo Mahavadi Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Hare
Krishna
Ram
Krishna Hare Hare
Hare
Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare
Krishna Hare
Ram
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Krishna
Rama
Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare
Hare
Hare Krishna
Hare Rama Hare
Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Hare Hare Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Ram Hare
Ram
Ram
Hare Hare
Hare
Hare
Krishna
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 Krishna Hare
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 Rama
Ram
Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare Rama Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
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 Rama
Hare Ram
Hare Krishna
Hare
Krishna
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 Hare
Hare Hare
Krishna
Rama
Krishna Hare
Ram
Hare
Hare Krishna
Ram
Krishna
Ram
Hare Hare Rama
Hare
Ram
Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Nam
Hare Rama
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare
Hare
Hare Rama
Hare
Hare
Nam
Hare
Hare
Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare 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 Rama Ram Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय प्रेम से कहो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय Hare Krishna. This is Shama Supriya Devi Dasi from Houston, welcoming all the devotees to our Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. I thank all the devotees for joining this call and giving your very beautiful association this morning. And at the same time, please forgive me for stopping your sincere and ecstatic chanting. I welcome all the devotees to our Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. And now we will move to our next part of our session, that is our Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta summary sessions. So before starting that, can I know who are all joining this morning?
Hare Krishna, Shri Supriya Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisance. Jai Srila Prabhupada. This is Devi Dasi from Atlanta. Thank you, Mataji, for your warm welcome.
Hare Krishna, Preeti Vilasni Mataji, please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the sessions and giving your valuable association this morning. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shama Supriya Mataji, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Shri Guru Devi from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna, Shamagauri Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call and giving your wonderful association this morning. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Sukha Sagari. Dandavat pranams to all devotees on the call. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sukha Sagari Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the sessions and giving your wonderful association this morning and eagerly waiting for summary, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, anybody on the call would like to introduce themselves?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam to you and all Vaishnavas. Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Gopika Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the sessions and giving your beautiful association this morning. Hare Krishna. So I think, can we start recording, Mataji?
Yeah, Mataji, you may want to move your screen. Your WhatsApp is seen.
I think Hare Krishna. I welcome all the devotees to our Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call of our Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta summary session. So as part of the summary sessions, so we are going to listen to summary of chapter 57. Before handing over the call to Mataji, I would like to read the quote for the day of Srila Prabhupada. So it's the 30th December. There is a proverb in Bengali that one person wanted to see how many thieves are there in this village, and when he began to scrutinize, he saw that everyone is a thief. Similarly, in this world, you go to anyone, they are all envious of God. Los Angeles, December 30, 1968. Rebirth. Hare Krishna. I welcome all the devotees to our Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call of our Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta summary sessions. And today we are going to hear chapter 57 summary from her place, Sukha Sagari Mataji. Hare Krishna Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for giving your very precious time and association and giving the chapter summary, Mataji. I would like to hand over the call. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Supriya Mataji, and thanks to the organizers for giving me this chance to once again purify myself. So I'm so grateful and indebted to Bhakti Sangha Japa group for any iota of spirituality or quest for knowledge in me. So indebted to all of you. So this is very special and coincidental because we were recently visiting LA and we went to the LA ISKCON temple and had wonderful darshan of Rukmini, Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish and Jagannath Baladev Subhadra and also Gauranitai. And of course, we also took a tour of the Prabhupada Museum. It was amazing. It was just an amazing experience. So if any of you go there, please, I think you have to make appointments or something for the museum. It's only open by request. So as far as I know, so if you get a chance to go there, please go see the museum. It's very nice. And we were talking to the temple president there, Swavas Prabhuji, and he was mentioning that, I don't know, one of these popular newspapers, I don't know if it was New York Times or who, they did this documentary on museums, and one person had come to capture this our Prabhupada museum, and they said that this is very special and one of a kind. And the first exhibits where you see Prabhupada is like sitting on a desk and writing books, and that Prabhupada's head actually moves up and down. So that was very special. That's what we were told. So it's very beautiful, the museum. And there's also one exhibit for the universal form of Krishna. It was very amazing to see all that. So if you get a chance, please do visit and please take darshan. And yeah, let's start with this chapter, opening a temple in Los Angeles. So very brief.
Speak about this, Mataji. Can we move the screen? Because we are seeing Mataji on the screen and that's what is being. I thought you were going to speak about her.
Oh, I'm sorry. I paused the share. I'm so sorry. Can you see now?
Yes, Mataji.
Oh, sorry about that. Oh, yeah, my bad. Yeah. Let's start with the invocation prayers. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we will be studying Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta Chapter 57 from Volume 2, Opening a Temple in Los Angeles. So this is, a very just a brief background of what we saw earlier. So Prabhupada went to India in around July of 1968. 1967, because he had the stroke and he needed to recuperate from it. So he went to India and took some rest and recuperation, and then he was back in December in San Francisco, and then he visited LA in January. So this is January 6, 1968. So people, like the devotees there, because Prabhupada had gone to India, he was very sick. So they were very eager that, to see Prabhupada. And some devotees, when Prabhupada went in such bad shape to India, they weren't sure if they'll be able to see him back, again in the US. So that's why they were very eager and they were emotional when they saw Prabhupada. So this is kind of a brief background to this chapter. So this talks, the building, I'll be reading some parts of it verbatim and we can just talk a little bit more on it. The building at 5364 West Pico Boulevard was a small storefront in a middle-class middle-class black neighborhood of Los Angeles. With his key, Aniruddha opened the rear door and Srila Prabhupada entered, followed by a few disciples. So this was where the first, temple, so to speak, was located. But now it's on Watsika Avenue. It's not in this place. So Prabhupada went there and, there was a Brijbasi print of Lord Sri Krishna at the altar. So there was just a picture of Lord Krishna there. And Prabhupada, what he did was he went and, like we can see in the next paragraph, he went and he looked around and he saw the neighborhood, how it looked. And then he went inside and the temple room. And there were Aniruddha, Dayananda, his wife Nandarani, and the 3-week-old daughter Chandramukhi. They were there. So actually, I wanted to read this excerpt about Dayananda Prabhu and his wife Nandarani Mataji. So Nandarani Mataji was a Srila Prabhupada disciple, and she did exemplary service for Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, on many occasions, he actually says that she's very, very intelligent. And in fact, he says she's more intelligent than her husband, Dayananda. So that's why I just pulled up this article on Facebook. She left this planet in 2020. So there is a nice article. I thought we can segue. We can take a digression and go into this article. Anybody would like to read this article, which is on the right edge of the screen?
I can read, Mataji.
Yeah, you can start from here. I just thought it's inspiring to see the services she did for Srila Prabhupada. So.
Nandarani was one of ISKCON's empowered pioneers. In early February 1967, she ran into a friend in San Francisco who took her to the Hare Krishna temple. She loved the meal of prasadam they gave her, so she brought her boyfriend back that evening. She enjoyed the kirtan, but more than that, she liked the lecture given by the interesting old man from India, Swamiji. A month later, she took initiation from Swamiji, and then he married her and her husband with their families sitting on the floor listening to Swami chant strange mantras while he poured ghee into the fire that filled the storefront temple with smoke. For 2 consecutive days before the wedding, she and other women had helped Swamiji cook the large feast that she financed with a monthly salary from her job at the phone company. Swamiji observed her at that time as well as in the coming months as she attended classes and did service in the temple. In mid-1967, Swamiji wrote her husband Dayananda from New York, noting that his wife was very intelligent. He continued, "It is the grace of the Lord Krishna that he has put me in contact with so many rare souls who are taking to Krishna consciousness in all seriousness. And I'm confident that in the future, all my student boys and girls will preach this Krishna consciousness in the Western world more successfully." In August, she, her husband, and Aniruddha traveled from San Francisco to Los Angeles and opened a storefront temple there. A month later, they received a letter from Swamiji, who was in India. He wrote, "I had great desire to have our center in LA, and by the grace of Krishna, you have fulfilled my desire." That first year had not ended. Her daughter had not been born. Then in November, Swamiji identified her as one of the 7 leaders of his fledgling movement in a letter to Brahmananda. "I wish that you remain in charge of New York. Let Satsarup be in charge of Boston. Let Mukunda be in charge of San Francisco. Let Janardhan be in charge of Montreal. Let Nandarani and Dayananda be in charge of Los Angeles. And let Subala be in charge of Santa Fe." In February 1968, Swamiji visited his 5-month-old temple in LA for the first time. During a lecture, he quoted a verse by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and asked if the devotees knew who he was. Nandarani said he was a great impersonalist who was converted by Lord Chaitanya to Vaishnavism. Swamiji said yes. And to the other devotees, "Nandarani knows better than you." They laughed and he continued, "So girls are intelligent." It was clear that Prabhupada appreciated the work that she was doing in LA. In April of that year, he wrote to her and her husband, "Nandarani is very intelligent girl. Both of you execute nicely and try to bring up your daughter in the same spirit and live nicely in Krishna consciousness." In anticipation of his next visit to LA, he wrote her a long letter in which he said he appreciated that she was arranging lectures for him. "I am very much pleased with your preaching enthusiasm when you say if people won't come to us here, we will go to them. And this is the process of preaching, and this is required. I thank you very much for your spirit." He concluded by saying, "I'm very glad that you're so inquisitive and you're trying to understand things in proper perspective. So I'm always at your service, and you are welcome to write and inquire from me at any time." Then, after arriving at LA during a lecture, Prabhupada commented on Vatsalya, parental rasa. Just like this girl Nandarani is raising her daughter, always giving service. The child is accepting service from the parents. Her business is only to accept torture and accept service. The devotees accept Krishna as the son so that Krishna may simply torture them and accept service. The next year, devotees moved to a larger temple and an old church. By this time, the movement had developed so much that Prabhupada was receiving many letters. So he decided to ask Nandarani for help in answering some of the more routine ones. He gave her a letter and asked about the real meaning of Omkara. She wrote, "It is explained clearly in the 21st chapter of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya." Then she gave a detailed explanation. Prabhupada checked her response and wrote her back a short note. The answers are all right, and you directly write them. The movement expanded at a whirlwind speed. She continued to be an important part of it for more than 2 years in LA, sometimes as Prabhupada's driver, and sometimes cooking for him, and always doing service at the temple. Then she and Dayanand went to London. From there, she wrote and expressed her desire to be fully surrendered, and he replied, "I'm so much obligated to you for your nice sentiments. Krishna will bless you." And in another letter, "I'm very much pleased that you're fully engaged in attending Sri Radha and Krishna in London temple, and that you're finding great satisfaction by pleasing always their lordships. I'm always remembering the pleasure you and your good husband, Dayanand, and how you have been practicing since the very first." Her next stop was the Gurukul in Dallas, and Prabhupada wrote, "I've seen the special Rath Yatra issue Back to Godhead written by you, and I'm so pleased that you're so intelligently, you have sorted the matter to completely understand the philosophy in a nutshell. I know that you're very intelligent and educated girl, so fully kindly utilize it for developing the Dallas institution for the benefit of all the children." After Dallas, she and her husband went to Iran, and Prabhupada wrote to her, "Try to publish Persian books as they may be possible. That will be a big success. Iranians have very much respect, especially for the Americans, and your dealings with them will be very appreciated." Later that year, Prabhupada came to Iran. He gave no formal lectures, but his disciples brought interested Iranians to meet with him. In one conversation, Prabhupada began to speak about the form of God. He said that if Muslims pray, then Allah must hear. What do they pray? Nandarani answered, "For glorification of God." Prabhupada said, "Glorification means something about God, his activities, characteristics. What do they say? God is great. God is great. But how is he great?" She said, "That is not emphasized, how he is great, just that he is great." Then there is the proof of less intelligence. God is great, very good. But how is he great? What is the conception of greatness? So if I do not know about God, I do not know who is God, then there is the question of love. On a business trip to New York, Atriya Rishi, who was in charge of the preaching in Iran, met with Prabhupada. During the conversation, Atriya explained that all the devotees were working at regular jobs so they could stay in the country and maintain the center there. Prabhupada inquired, "And also Nandarani is also working?" Atriya said that she was teaching. Prabhupada said, "She has got experience." "Yes, she's very good." "Both of them are very intelligent," said Prabhupada, "and Nandarani is more intelligent than her husband." He laughed. "I know that." Atriya, who was quite fond of Dayanand, said, "I find that he's very intelligent, Prabhupada." "Ah, Dayananda, yes. He is intelligent," said Prabhupada, "but Nandarani is more intelligent." Again, he laughed. "I know that. Both of them are intelligent, but this girl appears to be more intelligent. That's all right." Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Preeti. Wasn't that so cool, right? I mean, reading this biography of Mataji. So she was instrumental in so many centers, as we can see, so inspiring in every way. I thought this will be very inspiring to all the Matajis on, especially on this group, to see how nicely Prabhupada appreciated the services, and he even went on to say on several occasions that she's so intelligent. So yeah, we can use
30th December, the disappearance, is that what it is?
Yes, I mean, around this time, this was posted, November 30th, 2020, it was posted. So I'm thinking around that time, she passed away this morning. So I'm thinking it's 30th or 29, 2020, about 2 years back.
Yeah. Thank you much.
Yeah, I thought it was very cool and inspiring. So yeah, thanks so much, Preeti, for reading that long biography, but I think it's worth it. So yeah, so we were discussing how Prabhupada went inside and and then we digressed to take and read about the short biography of Nandarani Mataji. So glorious. And let's move on further. So then after Prabhupada went into the temple room, he said that let's have Kirtan. I may just read, it's very nice in the words of Satsvarup Maharaj himself. So rather than paraphrasing, I would like to read a few things right from there, if it's okay with all of us. So Prabhupada looked around carefully. All right, he said, let us have Kirtana. And picking up the mridanga, he sat down on the small platform while his disciples sat down before him on the floor. No sooner had he begun to play, however, when Janaki rushed over to him carrying the tambura. So Janaki and, Janaki Mataji and, what's her name? The famous Yamuna Mataji are sisters, right? So Swamiji, she said, you can't play the drum. You're not well enough. So they were very concerned for Prabhupada, as we can see. Play this. Her reprimand was motherly. Prabhupada was 72 and only 6 months ago he had been hospitalized after heart attack and stroke. He had only recently returned from India where he had gone to recuperate. Naturally, his disciples were very concerned about his health. All right, Prabhupada smiled, trading instruments with Janaki. Then I'll play tambura. As Srila Prabhupada softly plucked the metal strings, his disciples clapped the 1, 2, 3 rhythm and Prabhupada chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So there's more descriptions given as to how Dayananda Prabhu, he had a good job as a computer technician for RCA. And so he used to give $200 monthly to support the temple. So he had also arranged for an apartment for Srila Prabhupada there, very close to that temple, that storefront temple, but it was very small. And let's, perhaps read a little bit more about what is said there. So when Srila Prabhupada had been in India, when Dayananda and Nandarani had moved to Los Angeles and found this little storefront, immediately they had written to him about the new temple and the warm, sunny LA climate, which they said would be good for his health. He had expressed his eagerness to join them. I'm pleased that our desire is fulfilled by the grace of Lord Krishna. Your specific duty is to chant and hear the transcendental name of the Lord. Read some passages from my English version of the Srimad Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita and explain them as far as possible as you've heard from me. Any devotee who has developed genuine love for Krishna can also explain the truth about Krishna because Krishna helps such sincere devotees seated in his heart. So Dayananda and Nandarani had written to Prabhupada that people in LA weren't as receptive as in San Francisco and New York, but Prabhupada had assured them that if they chanted with devotion, success would come. So elsewhere it's mentioned that, the New York temple, they very, very strictly followed, the principles and the regulations, and they were very strict in their achar. But the West Coast, like the San Francisco and the LA temples, they were not as strict as the New York temple. In his room at the Radha Damodara temple in Vrindavan, Prabhupada had meditated on sending young men and women like Dayananda and Nandarani all over the world to open Krishna conscious centers. Despite old age and ill health, this was his life's ambition. And we also read about who was responsible for each center, again, in that article, which we just read. So I'm just going to skip that. After the Kirtana, Dayananda drove Prabhupada to his apartment 2 miles away. It was a small, a front room, a kitchenette, a back room with a tiny bathroom. And Aniruddha had arranged for Gaura Sundara and his wife Govinda Dasi. the very famous Govinda Mataji, who, also appears in the Srimad Bhagavatam, book of Srila Prabhupada, and she was the first devotee who brought Tulsi Maharani to the West. So, who were acting as Prabhupada's servant and secretary to stay in the front room. Prabhupada said his health was still not good. His sleep was often disturbed, and he spoke of a gong, gong, gong sound in his head. He had occasional headaches and a ringing in his left ear. An Ayurvedic doctor in India had told him to take cinnamon buds, and he had seen a doctor in San Francisco. But the doctor's prescriptions had not helped. So Prabhupada says, I may inform you in that connection that I'm at the present moment physically unfit. I'm having always a buzzing sound in my brain. I cannot sleep at night, but still I'm working because I try to be on my position of spiritual platform. I mean, that's just so amazing, right? I mean, can you imagine having this gong gong sound in the head and you're ringing in the ear? And I mean, it's just amazing what Prabhupada was in on a transcendental plane, actually. Prabhupada was in good spirits. However, despite his age and lingering sickness, he appeared strong, and 6 months in India had tanned him a golden, healthy hue. He always sat straight and smiled often. He walked with a cane, yet upright, with a quick step, tiring his young disciples who attempted to keep up with him. He even mentioned that if his inability to sleep continued, he would have more time for writing his books. I mean, I was laughing to myself. If I lose like 2 hours of sleep, I'm like thinking, when is the next time I can catch up on that 2 hours? But look at Prabhupada, I mean, the great Acharya, he was like thinking, if he's not able to sleep at a night, he would just continue writing more books. So, I mean, it's just so inspiring to read each word of what Prabhupada did. Gone was the mindlessness of his young followers who had previously thought that Swamiji, because he was a pure devotee, should be let to do any strenuous activities he liked, working all night or singing and playing the mridanga for hours in the park. Now the devotees had become concerned and protective, trying always to arrange for his ease, suggesting when they thought something was too strenuous for him. Skipping a few lines. When Yamuna and Janaki arrived from San Francisco, they decided that if Swamiji were to get well, he would require special diet. So they devised a regimen featuring small servings of boiled vegetables without salt, spices, or ghee. At first, Prabhupada generally submitted to their requests, but on trying their meals, he commented, "These vegetables are nasty. They're not fit for eating." After 3 days, when Govinda Dasi told him of some new reductions in his diet, he roared, "Let the starvation committee go to hell. You feed me." So after that, they cooked, the regular lunch for Srila Prabhupada, dal, rice, chapatis, and, a couple of sabji, like how. And then he was so appreciative of it. He said, when I was in India, everyone told me, "Oh, Swamiji, you cannot go to America. You will starve there." But they have only meats and potatoes. But now I have come here and Krishna is so kind. He has not only given me everything in the way of nice food, but you're also cooking all sorts of nice vegetable preparations, chapatis, dal, rice, everything is there. So this is Krishna's kindness. So Prabhupada is always appreciative, of what his disciples did for him, as we can see, and he never failed to appreciate them and encourage them always. We'll see this encouraging mood also further down, where Subala Prabhu, another disciple of Prabhupada, comes into the picture. So that'll be shortly. Although when Prabhupada had first arrived in America, he had been alone and had had difficulty finding even a single sincere person. Now he was surrounded by sincere students, eager to learn from him. Skipping a few lines. So he had given this assignment of memorizing this, very beautiful verse. We all should, recite it. He had given this assignment to Gaura Sundara and Govinda Dasi to actually memorize this verse. So this is how the verse goes, and it will be nice if we all can try to also memorize this verse. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodita Gaudodaye Pushpavanta Chitrau Shamdau Tamonudau. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Shri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and the moon. Yeah, Gaudode Pushpavantav. Pushpavantav is like the sun and the moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. So this is a very nice verse. We can all try to, memorize and sing on God Purnima and Nityanand Trayodashi like that. Looking over their shoulders, Prabhupada remarked, "This is very nice, just like a child is learning to write. His writing may not be perfect, it may be crooked or imperfect, but the teacher wants to see that the students are trying. It doesn't matter how well they are doing, but just that they are fully engaged. So it is just like our service to Krishna. What can we do for Krishna? Krishna is everything. He doesn't need our service. He is Atmaram, right? Krishna is Atmaram. But he wants to see that we are trying. We are trying a little bit to give him service. That's the whole idea. So Prabhupada would always, weave in philosophy with each of his interactions with his disciples, and very, very amazing acharya in that sense, whose every moment of Prabhupada's life was a teaching, preaching. So it's very, very exemplary as an acharya. It was only 4 days after Prabhupada's arrival. He had just risen from an afternoon's rest, walked into the front room, and there was Subala. This is a little bit of a sad story. Prabhupada was surprised. Subala was supposed to be in Santa Fe. "My wife has left me," Subala burst out, and a sad tale followed. Subala told how he had left his wife Krishna Devi Dasi alone at the Santa Fe temple for a few days and gone to New York to visit his parents. Meanwhile, Krishna Devi had run away with the boy who'd been visiting the temple, and she has decided to stay with him and give up her husband. So Prabhupada tries to console Subala Prabhu and says that he will personally write to Krishna Devi and tell her, that she should join her husband back. So Prabhupada sees that, Subala is kind of disturbed. And so, actually Prabhupada had arranged for their marriage ceremony. And so he actually writes to Krishna Devi. And let's just read from them. Together they had gone, he had asked them to be an ideal couple cooperating together in Krishna consciousness. Together they had gone to start the center in New Mexico. "Don't be discouraged," he told them. "Even though no one may come to hear you, still you chant and hear." By now, Krishna Devi had simply left the temple and her husband. When Subala arrived in Santa Fe, he found that Krishna Devi and her boyfriend Randy had left town. Meanwhile, in LA, Prabhupada received a letter from Krishna Devi. She said she wanted to stay in Krishna consciousness, but with her new boyfriend. So Prabhupada was not very happy with this. He said, "This is all nonsense. I will simply go back to Vrindavana and sit and chant Hare Krishna. Why should I do this? Why should I deal with this quarrel between husband and wife? This is not the business of a sannyasi." We can see how Prabhupada had to look into each and every minute detail of his disciples' lives, and he did that with so much elegance, like and fatherly love. As we can see in the whole of Prabhupada Lilamrta, that there is this kind of fatherly love which Prabhupada actually gives his disciples. So Prabhupada, in spite of saying this, he wrote a letter to Krishna Devi in care of the Santa Fe temple. He wrote to her, "Your recent activities have been very upsetting to each and every member of the society. I never expected that you should act in this way. If you love me at all and Krishna at all, you should immediately return back either to me or to your husband without delay. In your letter, it is understood that you're repenting. You have done a great mistake. Come back and everything will be all right." And then to Subala, Prabhupada wrote that you go back to Santa Fe and, your wife should be waiting for you there. So actually what happens, but before Prabhupada's letter had arrived, Subala had already left Santa Fe for Los Angeles thinking, "I can't take this anymore. I'm going back to Swamiji." So sitting on his porch, taking his noontime massage, Prabhupada suddenly saw Subala looking more miserable than ever, coming up the sidewalk. "Subala," Prabhupada called out, remaining seated. Subala approached and offered obeisances before Srila Prabhupada, who sat in the California sunshine and dressed only in an Indian gamcha, while Gaurasundara massaged him with mustard oil. You did not get my letter? Prabhupada asked. No, Subala replied. Yes, Prabhupada nodded. You have got my letter. I've written you and told you if you're feeling too heavy-hearted, you may come here and live with me for some time. So what happens is Subala Prabhu moves to Prabhupada's apartment, and he, like we can see, he was sleeping in the living room right outside of Swamiji's room, and there was only a curtain separating us. At night, I could hear him dictating Srimad Bhagavatam. He asked me to carve some Radha Krishna deities for him. I had already carved some Jagannatha deities, and now Swamiji said he wanted Radha Krishna deities carved. So I bought a block of mahogany and began carving Radha Krishna. So, just carving this actually reminds, during our recent trip to LA, we met with Nara Narayana Prabhuji. He's another Prabhupada disciple, and he's in the last stages of his life. So, his son is there, Kuvaleshya Prabhu, and he's actually caring for his dad there. So we got a few minutes of time where we chanted with, and Prabhuji is very sick. He was in the bed, and he's not, he's not able to talk also, like he's almost in the final stages. So he was also one of the great, why I was reminded is he's one of the great devotees who actually carved many Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra deities. So that's why I just thought it will be good to mention. So another reason, if you go to LA, please go and take darshan. Prabhupada received word from Rai Rama in New York that his editing of the Bhagavad Gita manuscript was nearing completion. When Prabhupada read Rai Rama's letter, he exploded. Nearing completion, I heard this before I started for India. Rai Rama's slow editing was delaying the manuscript too much. Although the contract with Macmillan Company had already been signed, the manuscript still had not been submitted. Seeing Rai Rama's editing as a perpetual delay, Prabhupada decided Rai Rama should immediately stop all other duties and come to LA. After a few days, Rai Rama arrived. He too settled into the crowded front room of Swamiji's tiny apartment. So I don't know how many devotees were there in close proximity, picking a corner for himself where he could work on the Bhagavad Gita manuscript. After having spoken in the temple in Swamiji's presence one night, Rai Rama wrote home to the devotees in New York. Although his health is delicate, he is not to be held back. After all that activity last night, he continued talking to us when we returned, and then got up at 2:30 a.m. this morning and worked for 3 hours. He just returned now from a 2.5-mile morning walk. So he's not exactly weak or failing. And if we say anything to check him, he tells that this life has no value if it is not used for Krishna. Last week, Gargamuni was telling Swamiji that he sometimes dreams of how to sell things. And Swamiji said that he also dreams of preaching. But he told us last night that when he's speaking of Krishna, there is no pain. So Prabhupada is, as we can see over and over again, he's on a transcendental platform with his health, but he's got that spiritual energy in him, which is keeping him up. And, in the wee hours of night, all he's doing is, translation and, recording lectures and things like that. One day on a walk, Prabhupada discovered a special place across the street from his apartment. There on a neighbor's front lawn stood a broad, tall tree. Taking a few disciples with him, Prabhupada went over and sat down beneath the tree. On a warm Los Angeles afternoon, this was a great but simple luxury, sitting in the pleasant sunny atmosphere beneath the shade tree. Rai Rama considered the occasion something to write to the devotees in New York about. So Prabhupada, he went and sat there under the tree. I'll just skip a few lines. Meditation under the tree is very nice, he said after a few minutes. As we sat there, other devotees came and joined us, all sitting around Swamiji on some unknown person's lawn under their tree. Therefore, in former times, sages used to seat themselves under trees and teach. I know that I'm a worthless fool. Here I sit at Swamiji's feet, and my tears aren't flowing or my heart breaking with joy. But even for a fool, Swamiji's presence is intoxicating in the extreme. So Prabhupada says that in India, saintly persons, they always, lived under the trees, especially he again quotes the Goswamis of Vrindavan, how they stayed each night under a different tree. And so the whole mood, in how Prabhupada looked at even simple things in life, it was very sublime. One often Aniruddha would return to the apartment after shopping or errands, and he would see from afar this gorgeous looking saffron robed person sitting there on the grassy lawn. So, like the descriptions go, Prabhupada was so brilliant and gorgeous there on, with his saffron robes in that green lawn. One day, as Subala, Govindadasi, Rairam, and others sat with Prabhupada in the shade, Prabhupada observed a pair of white butterflies. Just see the swarms, he said, pointing to the butterflies. Here also there is husband and wife. The whole world is in this bondage. So Prabhupada knows that, Subala is still actually kind of upset about, his wife leaving him. And so he's trying, to bring that, somehow into context and preach them. So he says the Maya is so strong. It is Krishna's divine energy. And for someone to actually stay engaged in Krishna's service is very rare. The living entity is practically helpless under the sway of Maya's power and can only cry out to Krishna for help. But we have to pray at every moment that the power of Maya does not disturb us. So this way he tried to console Subala, whenever he got a chance. Subala continued to live with Prabhupada, cooking for him, tending to his personal needs, and carving deities of Radha and Krishna. Prabhupada wrote to Krishna Devi again. So he again writes, see, Prabhupada is so merciful. He again writes, your husband Sriman Subala Das is living very peacefully, living with me very peacefully, and he's carving Radha and Krishna from hardwood. So this life of material existence is just like hard wood. And if we can carve Krishna out of it, that is the success of our life. So at any circumstance, you must not forget Krishna. I love you at my heart, and therefore I gave you the name Krishna Devi Dasi. Don't forget Krishna even for a single moment. Chant Hare Krishna loudly or slowly as it may be convenient. But don't forget to chant the holy name. I hope everything will be all right as soon as you come here with Randy. And I'm awaiting your arrival with great interest. See, Prabhupada is so kind. He again writes to her so lovingly, asking her to come back. Let's move on. One day after a walk, Prabhupada told Aniruddha that Los Angeles reminded him of Bombay and that he wanted to build a very big temple in LA. Although Aniruddha was not one to endeavor hard for building a temple, Prabhupada still told him his vision. Another day, Prabhupada called Aniruddha in and showed him the deity of Radha and Krishna that Gaurasundara and Subala had carved. So Gaurasundara is Govinda Mataji's husband. Prabhupada's eyes were shining. I want to have Radha Krishna deities in everyone's home, he said. Aniruddha was amazed by the joyful expression on Prabhupada's face. What can I do? Aniruddha asked. I want you to go to different foundries and find out the cost of casting deities. So Aniruddha and Subala, they do the groundwork and try to find out the cost of making new deities like that. One morning, this is an interesting kind of funny episode. One morning, Aniruddha went to Sri Srila Prabhupada with what he considered a frightening story. So some cop, a cop had actually pulled him up and asked, what are you doing? Aniruddha explained that he was getting toothbrushes for his spiritual master. So Prabhupada apparently used eucalyptus twigs for brushing his teeth. And don't you know that these trees belong to the city? They belong to the people of California. He had said that Aniruddha could be arrested for carrying an open knife. When he had asked Aniruddha what was in the bag around his neck, Aniruddha had shown him his beads. The policeman had then asked if Aniruddha had come from a mental institution. Prabhupada smiled to hear the story and inquired, did you ask him if he was crazy? So because this apartment was small and you can see, how so many devotees were actually settling into that small apartment. So Govinda Dasi had been complaining to Aniruddha that Swamiji's apartment was too noisy and crowded and that there were no private bathroom facilities for Swamiji. She kept insisting Aniruddha find a better place. Aniruddha, however, was getting only $200 a month from Dayananda. So eventually what happens is Dayananda, Prabhuji and Aniruddha, both of them, they arrange for a larger apartment for Srila Prabhupada. The new apartment was 4 rooms over a private garage in the rear of an apartment complex. Aniruddha painted and some of the devotees helped prepare the apartment as comfortably as possible for Prabhupada. Then they moved him in. The landlord, a small Japanese man, came by and seeing Prabhupada seated on the floor behind his trunk, asked, "Where's your furniture?" He seemed suspicious. Prabhupada smiled, thanked him, and said it was all right. "We can sit down anywhere," Prabhupada explained. "We are mendicant." But after leaving, the landlord kept standing outside on the landing, peeking through the window. "Tell him to go away," Prabhupada said to Aniruddha. So there was the suspicious Japanese landlord there. At the temple during the evening program, Prabhupada would sometimes ask one of his disciples to speak after the Kirtana. So he asked of Dayananda Prabhu to actually speak. And Dayananda Prabhu, he felt not very qualified, to speak in front of Srila Prabhupada. And though when Prabhupada was not there, he had given some talks, but he thought that he was not, totally well-versed in Shastras to give a talk in front of Srila Prabhupada. So that episode is mentioned, but we'll read the last part, which is, kind of, it's a lesson to us too. When at one point I made a mistake and said the wrong thing altogether, Prabhupada matter-of-factly interrupted, explaining the point I had misstated. He then motioned me to go on. I continued without any loss of face. I was being corrected in public, but without the embarrassment that a chastisement might cause. Swamiji's correction was always based on love and sincerity in relation to the goal rather than to ego. So we see how the Guru, they actually correct their disciples because they want their disciples to do well. And we see how nicely Prabhupada did it, and it was not embarrassing, and it was not, like a public loss of face or something like that. But it was very nicely, in a very nice way, Prabhupada had corrected Dayananda Prabhu when he gave this class. So we can see how Prabhupada was such a loving Guru, but he also cared that the disciples, if they made any mistakes, that it should be corrected. On the appearance day of Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Prabhupada gathered some of his disciples, Aniruddha, Govinda, Dasi, Gaurasundara, Nandadani, and a boy named Sankarshana for a special celebration. So what happens is, so there is the small festival kind of thing. And at the end of the festival, reading the letters, Prabhupada became very happy. So Prabhupada actually started reading the letters from his devotees, from his disciples. He then put the letters along with the flowers before the picture of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Then looking at Nandarani, he asked, "Have you become happy since you have been chanting Hare Krishna?" So what he does is the letters which he has gotten from his disciples, he makes it as an offering. These letters became an offering, to his spiritual master on this auspicious occasion of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance day, Vyas Puja day. So then he looked at Nandarani and he asked, "Have you become happy since you've been chanting Hare Krishna?" "Oh yes," Nandarani replied. My life was wonderful." Looking at others, Prabhupada asked, "And what about you? Do you feel more satisfied since you have been chanting Hare Krishna?" They all answered yes. "Then I have only one request," Prabhupada continued. "Whatever happiness you have felt, you simply tell someone else about that. That is all you have to do. You don't need to teach anything. You don't need to teach the philosophy. You just explain to people that because you chant Hare Krishna, you have become happy. And if they chant, they will become happy. Then I'll be satisfied and my spiritual master will be satisfied." So we can see how Prabhupada is always driving, the point home. And on every occasion, he's trying to preach and say how important, like even in the letter, he advises his disciple that he should not forget Krishna even for a moment, and she should continuously chant his names. Again, here also we see that, he says he has only one request, that you chant and preach the same simple message to others so that others can chant. So this was Prabhupada's request. So this is another episode where, he meets with Umapati Prabhuji. As Srila Prabhupada entered the storefront one evening, he was surprised to find Umapati there to greet him. Umapati had left Krishna consciousness almost a year ago, and Prabhupada had not seen him. Spontaneously, Prabhupada went forward and embraced Umapati. A few months before, Umapati had written indicating that he was thinking of returning, so his arrival was not a complete surprise to Srila Prabhupada. As Prabhupada took his seat, he asked Umapati about the devotees in New York. Briefly, Prabhupada reminisced how he had begun his movement in New York and how boys like Umapati had helped him. So Umapati, he was also a sannyasi for some time, and I think he was more attached to the Buddhist philosophy, and he took, he went to study more of that and then again joined back. Later that evening, back at the apartment, Prabhupada expressed sadness that some of his disciples had left Krishna consciousness. He told Umapati that when the wife of one of the sannyasi disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had forcibly dragged her husband away, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had shed tears over his inability to save the disciple. Disciple, due to Maya's influence, may fall away, Prabhupada said, but the spiritual master will never forsake him. That's such a strong message, right? The disciple may leave and go, but the spiritual master never forsakes. Umapati had left Krishna consciousness because of intellectual doubts. Having been an eclectic follower of Buddhism, he had objected to Prabhupada's explanations of Buddhism. On leaving Krishna consciousness, however, he has simply returned to his old job in a radio station, grown back his beard, and reverted to his old habits. Whenever I saw something doing wrong, like eating meat, Umapati explained to Prabhupada, I would think, my spiritual master said this is bad. So when you think like that, Prabhupada said, your life at once becomes sublime. And then Prabhupada then asked his disciples, now that you become, as a person becomes more Krishna conscious, Prabhupada explained, he becomes concerned not to cause suffering to other living beings. He doesn't want to cause suffering even to a small insect. Don't you feel? Prabhupada asked, imploring them with his eyes to understand the non-violence of a devotee. So the devotee has this ahimsa quality. That's what Prabhupada is trying to emphasize here. Seeing that Prabhupada was almost constantly occupied by various disciples, Lilamrta, one of the girls visiting from San Francisco, decided not to take up her spiritual master's time unnecessarily. Prabhupada noticed her frequent absence from the gatherings at his apartment. When she finally visited him, he asked her, why are you not coming? Oh, Swamiji, Lilamrta said, you must do your translating work. I don't think you're getting your work done. No, you don't know, Prabhupada corrected her mistake. Don't you know my disciples are my work? So this is how much Srila Prabhupada invested in his disciples. Oftentimes, we try to bring in new disciples into Krishna consciousness, but the more important task is of cultivating and nurturing them, because bringing in new disciples, it's in one sense maybe not so difficult, but trying to keep them, in Krishna consciousness, trying to keep them enthused in Krishna consciousness, and trying to help them as they go through their, process of purification, Krishna consciousness. That's very tough. And we can see how Prabhupada did everything possible, to make his disciples advance in Krishna consciousness. So nurturing of devotees, cultivating devotees is so important. And we can see how Prabhupada spent all his time and energy doing this. Prabhupada said he would go to as many speaking engagements as Aniruddha could obtain. Aniruddha got engagements, but there were many difficulties. On 2 occasions, Prabhupada, Subala, and Aniruddha were on their way to an engagement at a college when their car broke down. Another time, a policeman had arrested Subala for not having a driver's license. And Prabhupada, accompanied by a servant, had to walk back to his apartment. At an engagement at UCLA Student Center, not a single student attended. Prabhupada sat waiting for 10 minutes and then turned to Aniruddha. So what happened? At an outdoor engagement at Long Beach State College, there was no seat for Prabhupada, and Aniruddha had to run and find an umbrella to shade Prabhupada from the sun. Aniruddha, this is not very nice, Prabhupada remarked from the podium. So he was not happy with some of the arrangements. The devotees, they tried their best, what they could do with their limited means, but some of the arrangements were not, up to the mark. Like we can see, there was nobody at the UCLA Student Center. And recently we had this program also in Rice University. There was a student preaching program, and His Grace Radheshyam Prabhu was visiting. And we were like, I think about 6 or 7 devotees who had just gone, to help with prasadam and other things like that. So apart from us, there were only like, I think 4 or 5, students per se there. And Radheshyam Prabhuji, he waited for 5 or 10 more minutes, and but still that was the amount of students who had come that day for the Radheshyam Prabhu's class that day, for that program, for that Rice University Bhakti Yoga Club program. So after the class, Radheshyam Prabhu was venturing, even if one person, I can touch the heart of one person, that is success. So even if one person comes, and I can convert, I can present Krishna consciousness to him, that is success. So I was just thinking of that, when Prabhupada went to these places. But there were successes also. Mukunda Dasa arranged for Prabhupada to appear on national television on the Lay Crane Show. I don't know how you say that, Lay Crane Show. He also arranged for Prabhupada to appear on the Joe Pine Show, as well as on several radio programs. And Life magazine featured Prabhupada's picture and accompanying story as part of an article, The Year of the Guru. Although Aniruddha was prepared to arrange preaching engagements for Prabhupada for as long as he would stay, the devotees in San Francisco, New York, Montreal, and Boston had repeatedly asked Prabhupada to visit them. He had gone to India in July 1967, like we had discussed earlier, and returning to San Francisco December 14. He stayed in San Francisco 3 weeks and in LA for 2 months. So while his disciples in SFO and LA had seen him, the others had been waiting for more than 8 months. So now Prabhupada, actually, he wants to, go from LA, he goes to San Francisco, and we can see beautiful incidents like this. I don't want to skip any parts. Everything is so nectarian. As Prabhupada was leaving for the airport, he had to walk from his apartment to the car. It was raining and he had no umbrella or raincoat. Govinda Dasi frantically ran into the bathroom, tore down the shower curtain, and wrapped
Mataji, your
it
voice
around.
is breaking, Ravi.
Can you hear now, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, it's good.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry for that, Mataji. Yeah, I don't know. My internet sometimes has problem, I think. Yeah. Govinda Dasi frantically ran into the bathroom, tore down the shower curtain, and wrapped it around her spiritual master to protect him from the rain. So you can see, how in one sense, Govinda Dasi, she's in the body of a woman. And, but when she saw that her spiritual master was getting, drenched in the rain, she just did what she had to do. That's like pure love for spiritual master, right? It's, these are small things, but so inspiring in every sense that, how the disciples of Srila Prabhupada in those days were so dedicated to him, right? So dedicated. Prabhupada had unlimited plans for expansion. A big city like Los Angeles deserved a big temple, organized distribution of books on Krishna consciousness, and sophisticated cultural programs. And there should be deities of Radha Krishna in every home. Yet when enthusiastically planning to make everyone and everything Krishna conscious, Prabhupada waited patiently to see if a stray disciple like Krishna Devi would return. See, in everything, he's waiting for his disciples. Prabhupada was ready to appear on television or meet boldly with any challenger or travel anywhere in the world, and yet he allowed Govinda Dasi to cover him with a shower curtain against the rain. It's just so touching, right, to see how merciful Prabhupada is. The Los Angeles temple would become a great Krishna conscious success only with hard work and sincerity. And that Prabhupada knew would take time. His disciples were not yet so well trained as to make formidable advances for Krishna against the forces of Maya. Yet by his staying for 2 months in LA, he was strengthening his disciples' Krishna consciousness, and they would continue to progress. ISKCON LA was now a little stronger. A few devotees were going to stay and help. He would come back when they had done more. So Prabhupada tried to give his association, wherever he felt it was needed. Like he felt LA was still at a fledgling state, and he thought, by his association, he can strengthen the Krishna consciousness of his disciples there. So then in March, after spending 2 months, Prabhupada, he goes back to from LA to San Francisco. After the slower pace of the LA center, the activities in San Francisco encouraged Prabhupada. I think San Francisco Center has been very much sanctified by unalloyed devotional service of the members here. As soon as they are sincere devotees, immediately the situation changes favorably. So the San Francisco temple was more, well established than the LA temple, which was just then starting. This is interesting kind of anecdote which I would like to read here. Guru Dasa showed Prabhupada slides of the, I'm sorry if I'm running past time, but it should be over soon. Guru Dasa showed Prabhupada slides of the Krishna deity Prabhupada had named Karta Mahashaya. One picture showed Karta Mahashaya shortly after the devotees had obtained him from an import store and placed him in the temple. Other slides showed Karta Mahashaya after the devotees had been regularly worshipping him and offering him food. As Prabhupada viewed the slides, he began to chuckle. I think the deity has changed. Guru Dasa reviewed the slides. Sure enough, Karta Mahashaya had become bluer and plumper. Has he been painted or anything? Umapati asked. Guru Dasa said they hadn't done anything to him. So Prabhupada said, you have been taking care of him, Prabhupada affirmed. So we can see that the deities reciprocate. So as Prabhupada, he saw the slides and he thought that, he had put on a little weight. The Krishna had put on a little weight. Bhakti Yoga was a scientific law. As one approached Krishna, he reciprocated. Wherever Prabhupada's disciples were following the process carefully, he saw the improvement. Krishna consciousness, he said, was a treatment of the diseased soul by medicine and diet. The medicine was chanting Hare Krishna and the diet was prasadam. If one followed this program, he would be rejuvenated. If one neglected it, he would relapse. Srila Prabhupada found both health and illness. Upendra, Prabhupada's personal servant in SFO, came before Prabhupada crying. He said, he couldn't overcome his sex urge. He had engaged in illicit sex. When he asked if Krishna forgives offenses, Prabhupada consoled him. Yes, Krishna forgives. Upendra asked if he could overcome his lust by getting married. No, you're too young, Prabhupada said. You should stay away from rich food. Eat starvishly. He told Upendra to take unspiced dal and chapatis without butter. I think in one of the classes, even Amog Leela Prabhu, he is a youth preacher, a very, very, popular youth preacher in India. And many times, like the youth, they also come to him with these kind of questions, where they find it difficult to control their urges. So Prabhupada, Amog Leela Prabhu mentioned that when you go easy on carbs, like how Prabhupada is saying, stay away from rich food. When you go easy on carbs, he said that you can much better control these urges. After a few weeks in San Francisco, Srila Prabhupada flew to New York, where the devotees greeted him with a grand airport reception. A city newspaper ran an article, Guru Returns. The New York Center at 26 2nd Avenue had improved, and there were new faces and enthusiastic kirtanas. So after a few weeks now, Prabhupada has gone to New York. So because, these are more kind of established centers, we'll read from here. Prabhupada had written Brahmananda. I want to sit down tightly with some assistants and spend the rest of my time translating Srimad Bhagavatam and other books and train students to do preaching on the outside. So from now on, I would like to speak only at very important engagements, and for most engagements, have my students preach. So now Prabhupada was actually trying to, delegate much of the preaching activities to all devotees, because he thought like the devotees were being properly trained and they are at a position that they can, kind of take charge. All of you must learn to preach. And for me, my most important preaching work is to finish up the Srimad Bhagavatam. So please try to make arrangement like this, as it is very important that my books be finished as soon as possible. This is also another sweet anecdote. One day while Prabhupada was sitting in his room receiving his massage, he began talking and laughing. As he sat on the floor with one leg tucked under his body and one leg outstretched before him, he told the 2 or 3 devotees present how Krishna, carrying the lunch his mother had packed for him, would go to the forest with his cowherd boyfriends who were also carrying lunches from home. Krishna and his friends would all sit together sharing their lunch, and Krishna always had the best laddus and kachoris. Prabhupada's eyes flashed and he rubbed his hands together, smiling. I simply want to go to Krishna Loka so I can have some of Krishna's laddu and kachoris. I do not have any great diversion from this. I simply want to go there so that I can enjoy eating laddus and kachoris with Krishna and the cowherd boys. Opening his eyes widely, he glanced at Devananda, who was massaging him, and at the others in the room. Oh, he said to them, if you will give me laddus and kachoris, then I will bless you. So Prabhupada was very fond. His name when he was young was Kachori Mukhi. Swamiji, please teach us how to make laddus and kachoris. The devotees replied excitedly, we'll definitely make them for you. Yes, Prabhupada assured them. I shall show you, I shall teach you. See, Prabhupada taught every small thing, to everybody. Newcomers in New York wanted to be initiated. One boy had seen Prabhupada's picture in Life magazine, cut it out and put it in his high school locker. A boy named Jay, after having read about Prabhupada and the devotees in Evergreen Review, had visited the temple and found that everyone was devoted to Prabhupada. Some disciples whom Prabhupada had initiated by mail, like Indira and Ekaini, 2 sisters still in high school and living at home, were meeting their spiritual master for the first time. Prabhupada initiated all the eligible newcomers. The day before Prabhupada left for Boston, so from New York now he's going to Boston, he lectured at the New York State University at Stony Brook, a 2-hour drive from the temple. Brahmananda Prabhu says, the engagement was in a huge auditorium with rows of seats and the house was full. The bleachers were completely packed when we came in. Bleachers are those, those seats, the benches kind of things around the auditorium. The rows of seats went back up and we could hardly see the audience. First we held Kirtana and then Prabhupada spoke. As Prabhupada was speaking, we could hear the sound of chairs popping up as the students were getting up and leaving. But Prabhupada just went right on lecturing as if he weren't aware of it. By the time the lecture was over, there were only about 24 people left. After the program, the devotees discovered that the car Prabhupada was supposed to ride in had already left. A student stepped forward, however, and offered his Triumph sports car, a tiny 2-seater. Prabhupada didn't like the car, but it was the only thing available. So Brahmananda drove Prabhupada back to Manhattan. Around midnight, Prabhupada dozed while Brahmananda speeded, hurrying to get back to the temple as soon as possible. So Prabhupada was dozing peacefully when Brahmananda hit a large pothole and Prabhupada struck his head on the metal bar on the roof of the car. When finally they returned to the Lower East Side, it was past midtime. Prabhupada would have to catch his 9 a.m. flight to Boston. Although Prabhupada rose that morning on schedule, most of the devotees were still asleep when he left his apartment. At the airport, Prabhupada commented that his disciples, rather than praising him, should try to follow his example and rise early. So this is the message. He says that Prabhupada, was very eager that his disciples must, rise up early. I have a long way to go on this principle. Yeah, I need the mercy of all devotees to do that. Yeah, this actually reminds me of recently there was this class by His Holiness Indradumna Swami Maharaj, and there was a kirtan program that night, and it was almost nearing like 9 o'clock, and but Maharaj's kirtan is so nectarian and so ecstatic. The whole temple room was dancing to it. And so they were like, encore, please do more kirtan. Then Maharaj said that he had to catch a 2 a.m. flight, so he was hardly going to get a couple of hours of rest, and he said, yeah, surely next time. But then after 5 minutes, Maharaj sat down and did another round of kirtan. I mean, that's like costless mercy, how our Maharajas also, they sacrifice all their sleep and everything just, to give that mercy to all of us. It was so ecstatic, the kirtan. I mean, it was just amazing, out of the world and experience. So I just got reminded of this, like how Prabhupada was preaching and he went back home at midnight and he had to catch 9 a.m. flight. So I'm sure he had to wake up early and, and do other things before he took his flight. So, yeah, with that, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to glorify Srila Prabhupada. And please kindly share your realizations. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol, Mataji. Very, very nice. And especially I like the sloka in the middle of the reading. We have the sloka that is very nice, Mataji. I thought it is apt. You got this chapter. And remaining parts starting from Nandarani Mataji's glorification and how she is very intelligent, how Prabhupada praised her very much, and remaining all the things, all the pastimes. Very, very sweet, Mataji. And especially I liked how Srila Prabhupada at one time felt as a sannyasi, why I'm dealing with all these householders' lives and why I'm taking so much care. This is not my thing. I have to go back to Vrindavan and practice my bhakti. And another point also very touching. Disciple may leave Guru, but Guru will not forget disciple. That is very, very touching. And lastly, as you said, Mataji, I have also same problem, waking up early in the morning. I need all devotees' mercy to overcome this problem. And at this forum, I beg at all the devotees, lotus feet, that they should bless me, that I should consistently wake up early and do my sadhana. And thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Yeah, I too need the blessings. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Yeah, this is I'm too much sleepy head, Mataji. Whenever I get chance, I take sleep. I don't know. So I need all the Mataji's blessings at this point, so that I should get away from this ignorant state and come to the platform of bhakti state. And thank you so much, Mataji, for taking up this session and giving nice summary of this chapter, Mataji. So I would like to request all the devotees who want to share their realizations, please raise their hands. I can go one by one.
Preeti has raised her hand.
Mataji, please go ahead, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Sukha Sagari Mataji. First of all, thank you so much for doing this chapter.
Thank you, Preeti, for engaging me. I'm so fallen that you're always merciful, like how Prabhupada is trying to somehow bring me back. Thank you so much.
Nothing, but thank you so much for doing this chapter. I'm so glad you got to do it. Having that, you just went to LA and you came back, and then you got to start with Nandarani Mataji's case. And the first half of the chapter was also a lot with the LA. It was so beautiful. I really loved the interaction between Prabhupada and the disciples. How Govinda Dasi spontaneously reacted, and I think all the interactions between the disciples, how Prabhupada wanted his disciples to always be back, and how he always thought about them, how he was ready to teach them everything, right from making kachori to laddu to whatever it may take. Right? That was so beautiful. So thank you so much. I'm so glad that I could hear this chapter from you, and you did such amazing justice to this chapter. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Always, Srila Prabhupada. Anybody else wants to share their thoughts or any realizations? Or
Hare Krishna, HG Sukha Sagari Mataji, Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gopinath ki jai. Mataji, you explained so nicely. We are not qualified to उसमें अंदर हम एंटर भी नहीं हो सकते, पर आपकी ये जो सिंसाइटी थी माता जी, it is difficult to explain in 2 minutes, but I try my best, माता जी. Srila Prabhupada, Radha Krishna deities, that Subala Mataji is making Radha Krishna deities, and that Srila Prabhupada's dream that Radha Krishna deities should be in each and every Vaishnava's home. And then Aniruddha Mataji, people of the California, that is the Srila Prabhupada dream that in California each and every Vaishnava's home Shri Radha Krishna deity should be there. And see, Govinda Dasi found a letter. There is a very small, Mataji, you explained that there is a very small home, not apartment, one room, so that Govinda Dasi will, and all the Srila Prabhupada disciples decide to make a big home, and then 4-bedroom hall kitchen they buy they rented for Srila Prabhupada, Srimati Shri Radha Rani and Lord Krishna. And that Japanese owner said that where is the furniture? So Srila Prabhupada said we will sit anywhere. And then Aniruddha, Shankarshana, Govinda, Rukmani, Subala, Nandarani have Srila Prabhupada asked that how is your chanting going, how you feel to serve Shri Radha Rani and Lord Krishna. So I rememberize that when we meet in HG Radha Kishori and Shidam Prabhuji's council meeting, they say first question is how is your japa is going on, and try to get up early morning and complete your japa. And then devotee of Srila Prabhupada said Aniruddha engage with difficulty, and Subala arrest. There is a Subala Mataji don't have a driving license, that why. And then Hare Krishna, you become a. He said Srila Prabhupada explained all the Srila Prabhupada disciple that if it is not possible that you become a big preacher, that is not my expectation, but you will give a Krishna conscious to your near one, and some Vaishnavas, you meet them, so please give a Krishna conscious. He should not forget. We should always and Srila Prabhupada said that happy, you will be always happy. You should not forget Krishna, and always remember Krishna and not forget to Krishna. And then Uma Bhakti Prabhuji, he left Krishna conscious before 1 year, and he's following of Buddha, and somehow Srila Prabhupada is taking care of each and every Vaishnava, and he's a sannyasi also for 1 year. And then some disciple of Krishna conscious, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, also have a struggle to give some Vaishnava left Krishna conscious, but our spiritual master is so merciful. We think that we are not meeting our spiritual master from long time, but he knows each and everything. Our छोटी बात भी हमारे spiritual master को पता होती है, because they gifted by Srila Prabhupada our Acharyagan, and they are blessed by our Prabhupada and our Acharyagan and Six Goswami. Then you explain about the that Umapati is working job in a railway station and something wrong, and then Krishna conscious. Then you explain about small and not that non-violence. Vaishnava should be non-violence, ahimsa quality. And Lilavati in San Francisco, Srila Prabhupada is staying 2 weeks in San Francisco and 2 months in Los Angeles. And also new disciple, Srila Prabhupada said it is easy to make new disciple, but we have to maintain those who are in a bhakti. जो भक्ति में है उनके पीछे ज्यादा मेहनत करनी है. And then it is tough to give to nourishing those who are following Krishna conscious. And Srila Prabhupada appreciate each and every disciple. And bhakti yoga and meditation in a LA student, Los Angeles Student Center, and Srila Prabhupada explain about the diet of prasadam and chant Hare Krishna mantra, student preaching program also, and when you explain about the HG Radheshyam Prabhu, there is only 5-6 Vaishnava student is there, but HG Radheshyam Prabhu said if one student, one Vaishnava or one person is there, I will preach Krishna conscious and sincerely, and bhakti yoga about Krishna conscious in a LA, and then Krishna conscious Mukund, then you explain about the Mukundatta jo article years of the devotees of San Francisco, Srila Prabhupada ने San Francisco बोस्टन में रहे, और then 3 weeks Srila Prabhupada stayed in San Francisco, and Prabhupada stayed 2 months in Los Angeles, and Srila Prabhupada say that how sincerely Srila Prabhupada disciple Govinda Dasi is dedicated, and that is a big temple in Los Angeles, and then Radha Krishna at the and there is Prabhupada dream that Shri Radha Krishna should be in each and every home, and Lord Krishna and everybody worship Lord Krishna and Srimati Shri Radharani, and Srila Prabhupada mercy, desi, and all Vaishnava sincere service, and Gurudas. This is where touch to heart that Los Angeles temple is day by day progressing, and you explain so nicely about Srila Prabhupada Karta Mahashaya, that offering food to deities, and Upendra Krishna forgive. Upendra Prabhuji, Srila Prabhupada explained that Krishna forgive the offenses of Vaishnava unspiced, and you explained that there is a HG Amoglila Prabhu, that unspices, Srila Prabhupada eat unspices dal and chapatis without ghee, and when our diet is so proper, we get more and more time to serve Srila Prabhupada, Srimati Shri Radharani and Lord Krishna. In New York Center, Brahmananda transfer. Srila Prabhupada said after that Srila Prabhupada visit to the New York Temple, New York Center, please forgive me, Sisi Bhagavatam finished. Srila Prabhupada said, I want to finish Shri Bhagavatam Seva. So please take responsibility to serve Shri Radha, Lord Krishna and Srimati Shri Radharani. And the massage time, Prabhupada is laughing. And best, so Prabhupada said to offer laddu and kachoris to Lord Krishna and Srimati Shri Radharani. I want to enter Gaulaka Vrindavan Dham to eat, offering prasad of Shri Lord Krishna and Srimati Shri Radharani, Shri laddu and kachoris. So all the disciples said, Prabhupada, please teach us how to make laddus and kachoris. And even in abroad, the devotees said in India that don't, please आप अमेरिका मत जाइए, प्रसादम का तकलीफ होएगा. So Prabhupada disciple will make dal, chawal, chapati and sabji offered to God, Shri Radharani and Lord Krishna, and give it to Srila Prabhupada. So how sincerely Srila Prabhupada trained that disciple. And you explain about the Prabhupada initiated all the students in New York, and Prabhupada after that visit in Boston eagerly effect to and Prabhupada always request that disciples that please get up early in the morning and complete your japa. And then you explained about the HH Indradhanu Maharaj when they came in a where you are staying, and 2 o'clock his flight, and still he is doing kirtan in the evening time, 9 o'clock up to 9 o'clock, and then he has to go next flight 2 o'clock morning 2 o'clock flight, but फिर उन्होंने वापस से कीर्तन किया. So this is the dedication of Srila Prabhupada disciple, how he trained all the disciple to give a Krishna conscious to that he उन्होंने रेस्ट भी नहीं लिया. और आप सबको कीर्तन में हम I attend so many in a sadhu sangha HH Indradhanu Maharaj कीर्तन program, माता जी, it's touched to heart. Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev Shri Radha Gopinath Ki Jai, you explain so many points, Mataji. I cannot cover it. कोटि कोटि दंडवत प्रणाम टू योर सेवा। श्रील प्रभुपाद श्रील गुरुदेव की जय, गोपीनाथ की जय। कुछ भूल हो ये तो माफ करना।
Sorry, I was on mute. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. It's just so beautiful. Thank you, Mataji, for summarizing. So, Devi, you raise your hand.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I love the class very much. I like the point that Prabhupada said that he doesn't need to deal in the husband-wife quarrels, but still he is taking care of his disciples. And another point that the devotees cooked some vegetables without spices and gave Prabhupada. And Prabhupada first agreed, and then he said, "This is like nasty food. I don't want to eat this. I want just rice, dal, chapati, and sabji." And another point, how sorry, how when the Prabhu was caught by the police because he was carrying the knife everywhere to cut Prabhupada's brushes. And Govinda Mataji, she tore off the shower curtain to wrap Prabhupada in the rain. Thank you, Mataji, very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sudevi, for so attentively listening and sharing. Very beautiful. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So Mataji, we have one chat message, Mataji. Chaya Mataji kept a message about this beautiful class and meditative narration. And yeah, Mataji's, anybody would like to share for Mataji's summary today? Okay, or else then, so Mataji.
Mataji, can you please sing one stanza, whatever you want to sing, Radhe?
Yeah, sure. Preeti, you have anything in mind? Let me try to find her.
Saying Sharanagati that what is that?
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jive Daya Kari.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, let me see if I know that one. This one, you mean? This is Prathan.
Yeah, this one.
This is Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu. Doya Koro More. Is this the one?
It ends with Jiva, like Vrinda Gopika said, Mataji said.
Okay.
I can actually see if I can share this.
Yeah, I got it.
Jive Doya Kori. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have actually sung this bhajan earlier, but Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jive Doya Kori Swaparshada Swiyadhama Sahavatari Atyanta Durlabha Prema Kori Baridana Shikhaya Sharanagati Bhakatera Prana Danyatmani Vedana Guptratve Varana Avasya Rakshi Krishna Vishwasa Palana Bhaki Anukula Matra Karyera Svikara Bhakti Pratikula वर्जनांगीकारा षडंग शरणागति हुई बेजहारा तहारा प्रार्थना श्रीनंद कुमार रूपा सनातना पदे दंते त्रिनकोरी भक्ति विनोदा पुणे दोहो पाद धोरी कांदिया कांदिया बोले आमी तो अधमा शिखाए शरणागति कोरो हे उत्तमा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। जय श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। जय भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय।
Jai
Sorry,
Ho,
Mataji,
Koti Koti
I didn't know
Dandavat
the
Mataji.
I didn't know the tune. I just sang it to whatever tune I thought would fit.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we can read the translation. Would anybody like to take turns to read?
Okay, I can start, Mataji.
Okay.
Compassion for fallen souls, Sri Krishna Chaitanya came to this world with his personal associates and divine abode to teach Saranagati, the goal of surrender to the Almighty, and to freely distribute ecstatic love of God, which is ordinarily very difficult to obtain. This Saranagati is the very life of the true devotee.
Thank you, Supriya. So, Devi, you raised your hand.
The ways of Sharanagati are humility, dedication of the self, acceptance of the Lord's as one's only maintainer, faith that Krishna will surely protect, execution of only those facts favorable to pure devotion, and renunciation to conduct adverse to pure devotion.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to read?
The youthful son of Nanda Maharaj, Sri Krishna, hears the prayers of anyone who takes refuge in him by this sixfold practice.
Yeah, these are the sixfold, right? The ways of Sharanagati. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Who else would like
places. Can I read, Mataji?
to? Please go ahead.
Bhaktivinoda places a straw between his teeth, prostrates himself before the two Goswamis, Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatana, and claps their lotus feet with his hands. I am certainly the lowest of men. He tells them, weeping, but please make me the best of men by teaching me the ways of Sharanagati. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, maybe we should listen to Prakti Charu Maharaj's rendition of this bhajan. You know, I will go back and try to listen to. Maybe he sings it differently.
Mataji, can I sing HG Bhakti Charu Maharaj only 1 second, one stanza with your permission?
Yeah, sure, Mataji. Please go ahead.
Every day after morning japa 4 to 6:30, HG Adhikadar Prabhu sing this. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jive Doya Kari Swaprasada Swaya Dharma Sahavatari Atyanta Durlabha Prema Kari Beradana Sikhaya Saranagati Bhakatera Pran. Dandavat Pranam Mataji, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gopinath ki jai.
Very nice, Mataji. Maybe you should have sung it. It was very nice to hear this sweet melody. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Sukha Sagari Mataji, once again, giving this beautiful summary and this melodious song also. So with this, I would like to pay my obeisances to you and all the devotees on the call. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
नमो नमः।
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, नाम
की जय
दास ठाकुर की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद
जय की
प्रभुपाद
जय।
लीलामृता की जय, हर ग्रेस
HG
सुख
Sukha
सागरी माता
Sagari
जी
All
की
glories to
जय।
Shri
की
Guru and Gauranga and
जय।
Srila
Thank you so much,
Prabhupada.
Hare
Mata ji.
Krishna, Dhamma
Thank you,
Pranam,
Mother
Mata
Krishna.
Ji.
Thank you
Ji,
so
very
much. Hare
beautiful
Krishna.
and
Hare
very
Krishna.
beautiful bhajan.
Have a wonderful new year, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Happy New Year to you.
Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year.